Welcome to the Hanley Effect, a podcast by the Hanley Foundation designed to educate, change minds, and save lives. Our goal is to inspire you, showcase our innovations, and change the conversation about addiction and mental health. Join us as we unravel stories of resilience, recovery, and hope.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Hanley Effect. I'm John Dyben.
I'm Rachel Docekal.
How are you, Dr. Docekal?
I am good, Dr. Dyben. How are you today?
I am lovely. We're going to switch it up a little bit today.
Just
Normally, I
a little.
introduce folks, but you get to introduce our guest today, and our guest is in person. And I will tell you why I'm excited about our guest. I'm a Palm Beach County native. I was born a few miles from where we sit today, and I've lived here my whole life. And I love this community. And we have, I know that our guest is a native, and this is her home, and she's chosen to serve this community. And I'm just so excited to meet another native, but also another person who has chosen to serve this community with her career. Can you tell us who's coming?
I will. Let me just say that for Hanley Foundation, for Hanley, we are so lucky to be in this community that we're in here in Palm Beach County. We have public officials who truly give their lives to service. Right. And our guest today is our state's attorney. Her name, for those of you who haven't met her, is Alexcia Cox. And she is, we don't usually say things like this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. She is a badass. This is somebody who has been at the state's attorney's office for more than a decade. She has served with me on the CJC board of directors. I just rolled off as chair.
What's the CJC?
Thank you. The Criminal Justice Commission. You jumped in with both feet with the CJC, as you do with everything. I don't think that you ever missed a meeting, and you brought such incredible ideas and insight with you. We are so, so lucky to have you as, I was going to say, our new state's attorney, but you've been in the job for a little bit now. Welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
You are such an important part of our criminal justice system. Will you just start by giving us a little bit about your background? Because, this isn't a situation where you just throw your hat in the ring one day and you run and I win and I'm the state's attorney. This really is a career in public service.
Yeah, thank you. It's a tremendous honor to be here. So I'll tell you just a little bit about my background. As was mentioned earlier, born and raised in Palm Beach County. My entire life was spent out in Royal Palm Beach with my parents, my sisters. This is home for us. So I take the safety of this community. I take it very seriously. It's my job, but it's also a personal mission of mine to make sure that Palm Beach County is a safe place for us all to live, work, play, raise our families, worship, walk down the street, take our kids to school, have the assurance that our kids are safe in school, So Palm Beach County has always been home, and I'm so proud to be a part of the safety of this community. I graduated from Suncoast High School, went off to the University of Central Florida, and then I went to Florida State University College of Law, where I graduated. And
such a good school.
It's a great school. Go Noles. Right after I took the bar exam, I think I took it on a Tuesday and Wednesday. That following Monday, I started my career at the office that I currently lead, assigned to our domestic violence division. And it's just been a path, a winding path, but a great, great honor to serve this community for almost 20 years.
You are so well known and so respected in our community, and you have been a part of a lot of those initiatives that are close to home for Hanley. I know that when you worked for State's Attorney Ehrenberg, that you were part of that team that looked at all of the overdoses and the rest of the tragedy that was happening here because of the opioid crisis. We just talk a little bit about your perspective on, excuse me, everything that happened during that time.
Yeah, I had the tremendous honor of working under Dave Ehrenberg, who, I mean, the name Dave Ehrenberg is synonymous with ethical, treatment. And so now we're at a place where he's not there, but I was able to learn under him and be mentored by him, serving as a member of his executive leadership team. It was during that time that we all saw what was happening in our community. It was devastating. Parents, mothers, fathers, siblings, children, all types of people that were born here, that came from out of state for treatment. We know that that they weren't getting the treatment that they bargained for.
Right.
And so Dave and Al Johnson, who you also know, they set out on a very important mission, and that was to make sure that we were able to root out bad actors in our treatment industry and replace them with good actors, so that when people send their loved ones in for treatment, they know that it's ethical, it's responsible, and it's done with good intentions. And so I was proud to be a part of the executive leadership team. I did not serve on the task force, but being a part of what was going on at the early levels of it, and now to see us be at a place in our community where we're reporting, record numbers in terms of the decline of opioid addiction overdoses in Palm Beach County. And to see where we started and where we are now, the work is not over, of course, but to know that our office, along with so many dedicated community stakeholders and leaders, that we made that happen. It's something that I don't have the words to say how rewarding that is. And I'm happy to be able to continue that work through our state attorney's addiction recovery task force, because right now we're looking at, we still have our hotline, so if there's anyone who suspects that there's something not right in the treatment industry in Palm Beach County, there's a hotline for you to leave a tip for us to look into that. So we still have, the ability to investigate and to prosecute any bad actors who come into our community and think that they can take advantage of our friends, our neighbors, our family members. But I'm just proud that we're where we are now, and I know that things are just going to continue to improve, and we're going to continue to see those numbers decline.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, especially if anyone has worked. I've been in this field for a long, long time, and seen the movement where 20 years ago we were just flooded, where uh, exploiting patients and people in need was
That's
a
awful.
norm, and the work that you and your colleagues have done has turned a tide, has immensely turned a tide that I know a lot of people never thought would be able to happen.
Yeah.
When we think about the state attorney, right? We don't always think about someone who's
No.
not just we think about somebody who's putting bad guys in jail, but you're also like protecting necessary resources like addiction treatment and health care from people who would take advantage of that. And I having been part of that, just am so grateful for it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm certain that when my predecessor, former state attorney Dave Ehrenberg, set out on this path, there probably were people that questioned utilizing state attorney resources for,
Right.
how does that, but it's about public safety. Public safety, that's number one. And, whatever that looks like, there is no blueprint for how to keep your community safe. And if it means making sure that people who are seeking treatment, seeking help, people in a vulnerable situation and they need help, if it means making sure they're getting quality, competent, evidence-based treatment, ethical services, that's a part of the safety of our community. And I think we owe it to people who live here and people who come here for that treatment to make sure that it's right, and that we're a part of holding people accountable who are bad actors.
I love that.
Yep.
I love that. You've brought a couple of really great new initiatives to the table since you took over. Will you talk about one or two of those? Maybe
Sure.
your favorite.
Well, I guess I don't have a favorite, but I'm really proud and excited to share that some of the things that I did create once I took office were I wanted to focus on violent crimes. I wanted to focus on repeat offenders, because I know, and I would hear from people in the community that, we people had a hard time understanding how someone with a very violent criminal history would still be, out on the street committing crime. And I took that to heart. And so we made sure that we created a violent repeat offender unit to really focus on those individuals and make sure that they do not continue to wreak havoc and commit crime in our community. In addition to that, it was really important for me to make certain that we were checking all the boxes when it came to our seniors, our elderly community. And so I created our elder crimes unit as a part of a new division that we have called the Special Prosecutions Division. And what falls under the Special Prosecutions Division are those crimes that I wanted to make sure that my team and I paid special attention to. So we're talking about cyber crimes, elder crimes, property deed fraud, things that sometimes can go, people may not necessarily pay a lot of attention to them. And I wanted to make sure that we were doing that. In addition to that, animal cruelty, things that sometimes might fall through the cracks. We wanted to make sure that we were paying special attention to them. And so we housed all of those initiatives under our Special Prosecutions Division. And it's been doing great, making sure that people who exploit our elderly, especially people whose main job is to defraud and exploit vulnerable members of our community, that we're able to address that and hold them accountable. And in addition, to go out and educate the public on the scams and the fraud that we see and how to avoid it, how to identify it. And that's been truly rewarding also.
So
How
good.
how powerful giving voice where it is not the most popular thing that people are immediately interested. They're interested in violent crime, but the older adult who's living by themselves who gets ripped off, they're easy to get ignored. And so paying attention to that intentionally,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Can I ask a personal question?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to be where you are, to have accomplished what you've accomplished, you could have chosen any path as an educated attorney, as a person. You could be out there making tons of money, doing but you've just chosen to spend. It's fascinating, even from like as soon as you pass the bar, you've chosen to spend your career in service. Where does that come from? What's the inspiration? Where do you get that inspiration to spend your life in service?
Well, I will say it is my love for community. And a lot of it is, I got it honestly from my parents who taught me about serving others. I got to see firsthand role models who uplifted others. Community has always really been important to me. I love mentoring and making sure that I leave not just legacy, but also um, young people to come behind me to break through glass ceilings like I have, and to make sure that our community is a good place. It's a thriving community. So I just have to tell you, I think it just came from my love of my community. I've thought about doing other things, making lots of money. I mean, when I went to law school, that was the plan.
Right.
And then I got a taste of prosecution while I was interning at Florida State. I did an internship at the state attorney's office in Tallahassee, and I had 2 cases that went to trial, and one of them involved illegal contracting. Someone was not licensed, and they, you know, decided to hold themselves out as a licensed contractor. Took advantage of someone, and I was able to get justice for that woman. And it made me feel a way that nothing else that I
Mm.
had ever done made me feel. And I knew that that might be what I needed to be doing. And if I was going to go anywhere and become a public servant, I wanted to be home. I wanted to serve this community that molded and shaped me into the leader I am. I wanted to serve the community where my family lives and loved ones are. So here I am back in Palm Beach County doing everything I can to make a difference.
Love
I
that.
love that.
Here in Palm Beach County, we are a complex community in some ways. We have several dozen municipalities that all come together to make up Palm Beach County. I'm interested in what you think, some of your successes are attributable to. specifically, will you talk about the work that you do with all of these different community organizations like the CJC? I mean, I truly don't know when you sleep. Um, but talk to us a little bit about your service outside of the state attorney's office.
So I believe that it's important to show up as a prosecutor, not just in the courtroom, not just at the state attorney's office, beyond the four walls of that building. It's a community that, I realize not a lot of people know a prosecutor. We're not that popular in friend circles, if you can believe it, but no. No. But no, actually, I think it was important for me to go out into the community, you know, representing myself, my family, being a Black woman, being a prosecutor in this community that I know so well and love. And so I just always believed that showing up, representing all these things about myself into the community, it was important. And that's what I did. So I think I was in my 20s when I started serving on my first board here in Palm Beach County.
Wow.
And that was the YWCA of Palm Beach County. And I eventually became the board chair. I think I served 2 terms as board chair. And that was my first time, really putting myself on a board and learning about what board service means. And so from then on, I started showing up in other organizations, Florida Association for Women Lawyers, many other organizations that I just felt I wanted to be at the table. And that's what I did because I think it's important to be there, to be seen, to have a voice, to lean in. And be, I couldn't continue to tell young women, especially those that look up to me and aspired to be like me. I couldn't tell them to follow their dreams and to show up and to speak out, and I wasn't doing it myself. So I continued mentoring through several organizations. One of them that's very dear to me is Hearts for Moms, which is an organization for young mothers in our community. And I would mentor these young ladies. I was a young single mother myself, and I wanted them to have a role model and a demonstration of what faith and determination and hard work and also giving back, what that looks like. And it was incredibly rewarding. So being able to pour all of that into other areas of my life, like the CJC, making sure that I'm at the table when we have these conversations, these important conversations about the criminal justice system in our community. I love to be there. I love to learn and listen. And I also believe it's just important to show up and provide insight.
Yeah, it's so good. You're making such a difference.
Thank you.
I'm picturing you at 20 on your first board, and I'm feeling a little. I was not on a board at 20 as a college student or what. It's an amazing. It's an amazing history. When I think about the boards, think about being all these organizations in our county. One of the things that I've seen is that we have in our county so much. We have a lot of service, a lot of people trying to serve, but but sometimes getting people connected. There are people that will say, "Man, we have a need here," and someone else will say, "Well, we've been serving that need for 20 years." There's a lot of disconnect. How do you, with your purview and seeing all these groups and these service, how can we as a community do better at coming together so that all the services, because there's, like I said, it surprises me sometimes in our county there's a lot of people who are serving and a lot of things happening. I don't know if you see the same thing or if that it's accurate, but it feels like sometimes it's disparate and we almost need to bring them together. How do we do that as a community?
That I believe that's a huge challenge facing all of us who, whether we provide direct services or we're just a part of the problem solving of our community's issues. You know, my background, I didn't really go into it, but at the state attorney's office, when I started, as I mentioned, I was a domestic violence prosecutor. And then some years later, I was promoted to chief of our domestic violence unit. So I served for about 13 years, I believe it was, as chief of domestic violence for Palm Beach County. And there were so many people that had such great resources and services to provide to victims. It was often really hard to know everything that existed.
Right.
One of the things that we ended up creating was a coalition We had a group of domestic violence stakeholders, people who had skin in the game, who wanted to make sure that we were, you know, um, looking at everything from how batterers intervention programs were being administered, and as well as, looking at services for victims and families. And we would come together and we meet. And I think that's really the only true way, or like we do at CJC. That's the only true way to really make sure that everyone comes to the table. We're outside of our silos and we work together for the greater good. And when we have those meetings, it's not about ego. It's not about my service is better or more important or we're more successful. It's really about working together for the benefit of our residents.
I love that. It is, it's funny that this was, I recently got to be at a CJC, a large meeting, and it was my first time. Even though Dr. Dosekal's been, spent so many years and dedicated so much time to that. That was actually the first time that I ever got there. And it blew me away that all of these different, services were there. They were coming together.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense that more of that is what we need, like the services coming together, letting go of the silos, and like you said, not saying I've got the answer or you've got the answer, but together we do.
Hmm.
I love that.
Absolutely.
One of the things Hanley does is evidence-based youth prevention. We're in 34 counties throughout the state of Florida. You just talked about being a public school kid going to Suncoast. What an incredible, incredible school. Both of my children went there as well.
Really?
From your seat, if you could speak to that next generation of leader, what would you say? What type of advice would you give a young person who's going through Suncoast today?
Oh, wow. Well, of course, I would tell them to be careful who they surround themselves with. We've talked about in the CJC as well as the LEPC portion of the CJC, which is Law Enforcement Planning Council, the use of vaping, vape pens with kids and in our schools, and just making sure that I would probably tell, my younger self or kids that I would interact with, even now, to avoid peer pressure and those things that seem really fun. I mean, I don't want to be fun police. You're only young once, but just be careful because there are a lot of hidden, consequences that are just lurking, behind the scenes of these activities that you think are fun and that, I'll try it once, and it won't hurt me. Or my friends take this type of pill or what have you, and they're fine. Just being careful because you really don't know what consequence will result with your actions today. And if you want to be great and be successful and go far in life, you really have to sacrifice some of those things that might seem really cool. They might seem cool. So that would be my advice to them. And then I would also tell them to never stop dreaming. I was a kid at Suncoast trying to figure out life, and I would have never thought that one day I would be the first woman and the first African American to hold the seat of state
Mhm.
attorney in my home county, and so I believe that everything is possible. I believe that faith is what you need mixed with a little bit of grit and determination and hard work. And if you
Yeah.
put all of that together, you can do something really amazing.
And grace. You
And
have
grace.
a
Thank you.
healthy dose of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really do.
Faith with grit. I think I've got my new sermon series. Yeah.
John is a chaplain as well.
Really?
Yes.
It,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I remember, someone years ago, I was a student and I was working in a bookstore and somebody bought a Greek Bible. And I said, "Oh, so you're taking Greek?" And they said, "Nope, I'm just trusting that God's going to teach me Greek."
All
Yeah,
right.
they brought that Bible back 4 days later, right? Because trusting God and having that faith is incredibly important, but that grit
Hmm.
is important
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah.
In your time, you've been serving this community a long time. I have so many
Mhm.
questions I want to ask you. but we are like we're almost done. This goes so quickly. What How has this community changed for the better in the time that you've been serving this community over the past 20 years?
That's a great question. I believe I've seen more collaboration, whether it's between law enforcement, our treatment industry, prosecutors, community stakeholders, churches, and religious organizations coming together in the name of public safety and making sure that I'm sure you all would know better than I, but those times when there was the stigma surrounding, mental health and
Yeah.
substance use. And now we're able to have these conversations and talk about things with a lot of compassion
Mhm.
and more understanding and being able to bridge those gaps. And I think that's important in moving the needle forward. Also, you mentioned grace. I think grace is really important to have when you're talking about these really important and sensitive issues that impact everyday people in our community. And so I get to see that. I get to see us be able to talk about that and talk about treatment in a way that's positive and not always a negative. I remember some of the days when people were you had an addiction and it was bad. You were
Mhm.
treated bad.
Yeah.
You weren't helped, weren't seen as a person. And so to be able to fuse that into our conversations about criminal justice and have some problem solving courts that deal with it, like drug court, for example. I think that as a community we're on the right side of things. I mean, it's not perfect.
Right.
Criminal justice system is not perfect. Our county is not perfect, but I do believe we have a lot of people in Palm Beach County who want to make it better.
Mhm. Drug court really is such a tremendous program. Um, One of the things that Dr. Dyben says all the time is that our patients are not bad people trying to get good; they are sick people trying to get well. And we really need to reframe that conversation around substance use disorders and mental health.
Yeah.
People need to understand that. These are just sick people who are trying to get well, like any chronic illness.
Yeah. And I mean, it takes time to understand. Like I said, I grew up not knowing a lot of things. I think a lot of people are in that same
Right.
boat. And, once you know better, you're supposed to, do better. And so I think that having conversations like this and also bringing us all together when we're, through the CJC and other types of groups that sort of allow us to all come in with our varied viewpoints and discuss ways to make our community better, stronger, safer, without no judgment, just having conversations and talking. I think that's how we move a step forward, one step at a time.
I love that.
It's
I
a
love that.
it's a statement of a lot of hope. We still fight a lot of stigma sometimes, and have education and all these things that are to fight stigma. But you just gave me some hope and a little reminder that we've come a
Yeah.
long way, and we have much to be hopeful for and proud of. Thank you for that reminder. Um, I'm grateful for it. I'm the bad guy.
Always
I
the
am
bad
always a
guy.
bad guy because I'm always the guy to gets to tell us that we are out of time.
Oh no.
I know, right? Goes faster than
Just
it
started.
So
That's what it feels like. But we always like to let our guest have the last word. And so thinking about our audience, people all over the place, Palm Beach County, out of Palm Beach County, uh, a wide variety of people. What is one last thing that you would like our audience to hear from you today?
Well, a couple things. First, I want people, especially the residents of Palm Beach County that may be watching, to know how grateful I am to have this wonderful opportunity, responsibility to serve in this capacity. I see people. Sometimes people ask me, "Well, what do you do exactly?" And I look around and I see people walking with smiles on their faces. I see kids running and playing in the park, and I'm like, I do that.
Mm.
I make sure that people who are here, they're here and they feel safe, I hope. Because I'm a part of the public safety of this community, and it's a responsibility that I take personally. And so I want people to know how grateful I am, how much I appreciate this opportunity and to be a part of this moment in history for our county. In addition to that, I mean, I want to just continue to pledge my support of the work that you're doing and so many others
Thank
like
you.
you. And the work that we are doing through the state attorney's addiction recovery task force. It's something really important. I didn't start it, but I'm not ending it. I
Mm.
want to make
Yeah.
sure that we continue doing what we can, bringing together the people who can help, whether it's with legislation or bringing the law enforcement piece, the prosecution piece, to looking at all areas of the treatment industry to make sure that we are continuing what was started in 2016, I believe it was, with the Sober Homes Task
Right.
Force. So I want to just make sure that everyone knows that I still am committed to that work, and whatever I can do to support the work of our community in making sure that we continue to see um, a decline in our overdose deaths, a decline in bad actors in our treatment industry. I'm committed to doing that. So thank you for
Wonderful.
having me. And Rachel, it's been a pleasure serving with you on the CJC and getting to know you. So thank you so much for all that you're doing to make Palm Beach County a better place for us all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I am glad that the reins are in your hands.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I am
Thank
too.
you so much for being here.
Dr.
Man, I'm
D,
like,
this was great.
I feel like I'm not, it's going to sound like I'm being cheesy. I feel
Always.
even better about my community right at this moment. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. Thank you, Dr.
It's an
D,
honor.
for
Thank you.
all you do and for bringing our guests here today. Thank you, everybody who is tuned in or is listening. We'll see you next time on The Hanley Effect.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for the Hanley Effect. To learn more about our programs, visit hanleyfoundation.org or call 844-502-4673.